I want to talk about that, how Nike became one of the most prominent sporting brands of the world. So I don't know how many of you know this thing, but Nike is one of the most, their market share comparatively to other brands is it's higher. So like if you talk about Adidas, if you talk about Reebok, if you talk about any other sporting brands, you will see the global market share of Nike is highest in all of these sport brands, and what they are doing and how they became such a prominent brand in one of these in the sports world. And in this video we will talk about this. So first I will just start with the history of the Nike. So Nike, the founder of Nike, whose name is Phil Knight, he was himself he was a he was an athlete. So you always had that kind of interest towards athlete, and he always had this this interest towards shoe making, because shoe is one of the most integral part of any athlete, because athleticism is something which requires you to run. Like you have to run in any of the sport, you will see you have to run, and for that the only body contact that is being done by the road is the feet. And then if you are not providing the right shoe for the right athlete, it will basically degrade his performance. So shoe is one of the most important part of any athlete. So Phil Knight, after his retirement, what happened, that he wanted to start his clothing brand, his shoe brand basically, that he wanted to create shoes, and he wanted to start his sports accessories brand. And with that, he actually, what he did, that he didn't have any expertise regarding the shoes, like how do we make it, what are the things that we have to do in making a shoe. So he went to one of his friends who was a shoe designer, and his name was Bowen. His name was Bowen. So Bowen was basically he was also a athlete, and he was, at that time he was 50 or 55, something like that. So Phil Knight, what he did, that he went to his friend Bowen to basically create, just to have the ideas about like what sort of shoes are being used by athlete on the daily basis, and what sort of qualities they do want from any kind of shoes. So after that, what happened, that Phil Knight and Bowen, when they combined together, and Phil Knight decided to not being the producer of the shoe, but they trying to be the distributor of the shoes. So for that, he went to one of the shoes companies of the Japan, and the name of that shoe company was Onitsuka. Onitsuka was the name of that shoe company. And he went to Japan, and he there was a board meeting where he was sitting with some of the the partners of that shoe company, Anuska. He went to them and he asked them ki, okay, I will take your shoes and I will go to America, and you give me the distributing rights of the West America. So like there is in the North America, there is two things, like there is East America and West America. So he asked that board members to give him the rights to distribute that shoes in the West America. And with that, what happened is that in the West America, he got the distributing rights. So the owner of the Onitsuka shoe company, what he did, that he gave the rights to Phil Knight for distributing his shoes, which was the shoes that was basically done by that was being distributed by the Phil Knight in the West America. It was started, so he took the shoes from that Japan, from the Onitsuka shoes company, Onitsuka. So remember this name, Onitsuka was the name of that company which was in Japan, and he took the shoes from that place. And then what he did, that he went to his then he went to America. In America, then in the West America, he started his company whose name was Blue Ribbon Shoes Company. So the name of the shoe company which he started, because the shoes that he was getting, it was from Japan, and from taking the shoes from Japan, he came to America, because he always wanted to start a sporting, like a clothing brand, a shoes brand, something like that. So he came to America and he started his own company, which was, the name of that company was Blue Ribbon. So he started selling those shoes by the name of the Blue Ribbon Company. And also, I'll tell you a very interesting fact. So when they started selling those shoes by the name of Blue Ribbon Company, what happened is that some of the because the board members of the Anuska company, what they saw, that they saw there was a rise in the sale of the Blue Ribbon Company. So they started getting greedy. So what they did, that they took the distributing rights from Phil Knight and they give it to someone else. and they give it to someone else. And this had like a tragic it made Phil Knight, so he was so disappointed with this kind of a move by the owners of the Anushka company, that he was very sad, he was very depressed. The company that the shoes that he was starting, what actually happened, that he to take those shoes from the Anushka company, and then he started selling those shoes with their name by using their own company, which was Blue Ribbon. The name of that company was Blue Ribbon. They started selling those shoes by their own company, and the name of the shoes in the Western America that they were selling was Tiger shoes. So the name of that shoes that they basically chose was Tiger shoes. So they started selling Tiger shoes in Western America, and they started getting a lot of sale, and their percentage of gross and margin, they started increasing day by day. And what it actually did, that it made the owners of the Anushka company greedy, because they saw such a rise and such a rise in their sale, that they started getting greedy more about this. So what they did, that they took the distributing rights from Phil Knight of the Western America, and they gave it to someone else. Okay, after this incident, it actually made Phil Knight so shocked that he was very disappointed. That how someone can do this with me, because I got the rights, and now when I'm getting sales and my brand, and now my business is going up, they took the distributing rights from me. So after this incident, what happened, that they gave the distributing rights to some other to some other distributor. After this, what happened, that Phil Knight went again to Japan to meet the owners of the Anushka company, and he somehow, I don't know how, he manages to basically gain the trust of the he somehow manages to regain the trust of that Anushka company, and the owner of that Anushka company gave him the rights back. And then he again came to Western America, and he started selling his shoes. And during this time, his partner, who was a shoe designer, Bowen, then they both combined, they thought about starting their own company. So after this business rise, when they got to meet with the market expectations, when they got to know that we can actually start a company by itself, then they both decided to make their own company, which was later being known by Nike. So this was like the history of Nike that I tell you about, that how Nike started, and how Phil Knight and Bowen started their company, and how Nike became so popular nowadays in India. So what actually happened, that after 1 year, because Phil Knight, when he met the owners of the Anushka company, and when he came back to his home country, after that he orders some of the stocks for those shoes, because he kind of really liked those Anushka, the company that they were making shoes, he kind of really liked it. So he wanted to sell those shoes in his own country, which was in America. So he wanted to sell those companies in his own country, and he came to America. So he, first of all, what he did, that he orders around 100 or 200 shoes, and the orders that he received, it was a 1 year of difference between when he orders it and when he gets actually that parcel. What he did, that he went to Japan, and he met the owners of the Anushka company, and he kind of really liked the shoes that they were making. So what he did, that he asked them to give him the rights, the distributing rights in the Western America. So that Anushka, the owners of the company, saw trust in him, and saw that he has the potential to be a good distributor, to be a good businessman. So they gave him the rights to distribute the Anushka's company's shoes in the Western America. So he orders the first stock of the shoes, and he came back to America, and what he got to know is that when he orders that shoes, and the shoes delivers to him after 1 year of order. So like there was a difference of 1 year between order and receiving your stock. So he lost his hope during that process, because he thought maybe they are not going to send their shoes. But after 1 year, he got the first stock of the shoes, and he sells that shoes in like 1 day, and in 2 days he sell all of the shoes. In just 2 days he sell all of the shoes. And that's when he saw that the quality of the shoes was so high. That's when he got to realize that this is going to be a good business if I'll do it with right strategy. Okay, so this was the initial phase, that how Phil Knight started his business. After that, what happened, is that, you know, when this there is also interesting fact which I would really like to tell you, is that when they when the business started taking boom, and you know, the owners of the Anushka company, when they saw that, you know, the business that is Phil Knight is doing, it's really increasing day by day, and the sales and the market share is also getting hyped up. So when they saw this kind of this kind of rise in his business, what they did is that they started asking for 50% of the rights from the Phil Knight company, from Nike, from the Phil Knight, not the Nike, the company that initially it was Blue Ribbon company. So they started asking him to give 50% of his profit to them. So Phil Knight said that it is not fair, because, you know, like, you are literally, you know, you are not, this is not a right thing, because I got the distributing rights, and now whatever the upper profit that I'm getting, it's mine, you can't do that with me. But they were like, no, you have to give it to me, or else we could give this distributing right to someone else. So they took that distributing right, and then they just gave it to some other person, some other salesperson, I don't remember his name. So after that, Phil Knight was very disappointed. Phil Knight was very broke, because he thought, like, how could someone do this with me, because my business I really started, and now it started getting increased, and then suddenly they took the rights from me. So what Phil Knight did, that Phil Knight basically, he went to Japan and he met the owners of the Anushka company again, and I don't know how, but he somehow manages to regain the trust. And you know, the owners of the Anushka company, they somewhere saw again the potential, and I don't know how, but he manages to get the distributing rights again. Then he again came to America, and then he again started his business with the scratch and started selling his shoes again and again. And this was the initial phase of Nike, when Nike was not there even in a story. This is the company that he first started. The name of that company was Blue Ribbon. He started selling those shoes by the name of Blue Ribbon, for which he used to get the stocks, from which he got the stocks from Japanese based company Onitsuka. So this was the history that I tried to tell you, that what was the initial phase of Nike. And now coming to the point, that why Nike was such a prominent brand over the world. Like, if you will see why Nike is a brand which likes to hire some high profile athletes. So if you will also see the marketing strategy of Nike now, it is built in such a way that it always creates hypes, because, you know, always the top athletes wants to go for the Nike. Whether you see in the football, whether it's Ronaldo, in basketball, whether it's LeBron with Jordans, I mean, how can I forget the name? Jordans was and I also come to that point, but later I just want to finish my first monologue. So this was basically the history of Nike, that they started doing it. After that, what happened is, because Blue Ribbon company was started taking, you know, business was increasing day by day, and they started getting more market share, they started getting gross, and they started getting profit a lot. After that, what happened is, Phil Knight decided to reestablish his own company. So he actually discussed with his partner, which was Bowman. Bowman was basically a shoe designer. I tell you prior in the video that he was a shoe designer. Okay. So they started doing a survey. So they started, you know, going to different athletes, and they started getting the reviews, that what sort of shoes do you want, or what is the, like, you know, what sort of sole do you want, or do you want it light, or do you want some kind of a little bit changes here and there in the shoes. They started doing surveys, and they started, you know, talking to many athletes, you know, in that area. And after that, that's when came a point when Phil Knight started a company which was later on being known by Nike. So they decided to reestablish their company, and they wanted to make their own company, which was Nike. And Nike came into play, I think, in 1978-79 was the time when Nike, you know, came into play. Before that, 5-6 years, they run their company with the name of Blue Ribbon. But in 79-80 somewhere, I don't actually remember the correct year, but it was somewhere between 1979 and 80 when they started their company, which was known to be Nike. So when they started Nike was doing a reasonable amount of business in their initial days, but their biggest break came when they hired the greatest of all time basketball player, which was Michael Jordan. So I tell you how, like, before, like, you know, I tell you very interesting thing. This is really interesting, you know, just hear me out very clearly. Nike, before hiring Michael Jordan, Nike was doing a reasonable amount of businesses, and even they were also having a good amount of business, but it was only across the America. It was only across the America that they were having a good amount of business. They were having a good profits as well, and the business was also doing good, and they were having a good public image as well, because it's really important for a brand to have a good public image. Okay, so now after that, what Nike did is that Phil Knight, he decided to do, because Phil Knight was, I don't know how many of you know this thing, but Phil Knight used to be known as the Steve Jobs of the sporting accessories, because Steve Jobs was also known for his marketing strategies. When he first launched his iPod, he came with that iPod, and he just tells all the public in the thing, do you know we can hear the song by just having this small device in a pocket. And when he also introduced his first iPhone also, if you will see that video I think got like 20 million views on the. Steve Jobs was known for his marketing strategy, and same goes with Phil Knight. Phil Knight was also known for his marketing strategies and for his branding. So when Phil Knight got to realize that this is not how they will become global. So in the initial days when Nike was doing reasonable amount of business, what they did is they hire one of the top athletes from different sports. And during that was the time when Michael Jordan was also in one of his initial days, I mean in initial days of his career. In 86, 89, Michael Jordan was 21, 22 somewhere, still a rookie in his career. So Phil Knight saw the potential in Michael Jordan. Phil Knight knew that this player is going to be something else in future, and if he will wear Nike shoes, it will create a brand in itself. So Phil Knight did a contract with Michael Jordan that whatever the shoes people will take by the signature shoes, whatever the people will take from Michael Jordan, they will sell it on. They will give him some percentage of the profit. So the contract happened, and Michael Jordan was still in one of his rookie year. And after that, what happened, that Michael Jordan became started becoming like one of the most, like, we all know Jordan, like there are people in India who don't remember his face but remember his name. But we used to give Michael Jordan, he was such a greatest player. And then Michael Jordan started getting his coming into his prime, and that's when Nike released his first signature shoe, which was Air Jordans. So whatever the Jordans that we wear right now, the Air Jordans that we wear right now, it was the first Air Jordans came I think in 87, 88. I still forget the date, I'm really sorry for that. So that was a time when they have their first signature shoes, which was Air Jordans. And Air Jordans, the first Air Jordan, when came into the league, in the NBA league, there is a league in America which is NBA, and that first signature shoes when when it was released, I don't know, for some reason it got banned, because there was a controversy that shoes doesn't have any white color in it, and it is important for any of these shoes that basketball players are playing in the NBA, they should have white color into it. But unfortunately, what happened, that when the first Jordan, the Air Jordans, when they released the first Air Jordans, in that first Air Jordans, they didn't have that white color. So due to that, the NBA league, they just banned the first signature shoes of the Michael Jordan. But after that, Michael Jordan started becoming like a global, best basketball player, because Michael Jordan was the first player in the NBA league which was known globally. Because before that, there were also many greatest basketball players were there. There was Bill Russell, there was Magic Johnson, there was Larry Bird. There were many. There was this one player whose name was Hasham. I don't know his name. But there were like many players before him. They were also very good players. But Michael Jordan was the first player who became a global star, like a global star. People from the European countries started liking him. In the 1992 Olympics, when he was in his prime, he went to the Europe for, I think I don't know, it was I think Paris Olympics, or I don't remember. There was Olympics which was held in 1992, and he went to that Olympics, and he was such a global star, and he started getting his fame, and he started getting his money. And that's when Nike also started seeing the increase in their sales, and that's when the Air Jordan was the first signature shoes that the Nike made. And then they started getting their sales day by day. They started getting their sales, and that's when or also one of the most important thing that I would want to talk about Nike, that Nike was the first brand which started making colorful sneakers. Because before that, the sneakers that usually used to be there in the market, it was used to be a very, boring and, like less colorful shoes. But when Nike started making Air Jordans, they started trying different things. They started making it more, like more colorful, and then they started having these kind of sole rubbers which basically used by the basketballers to jump higher. So like there is a sole which is in below the shoes, and that sole will basically, what it does, that it made easy for the basketball players to jump. So they started using this technology, and they started making shoes very updated. And that's when the Air Jordan started getting hyped up. So when he went to the Europe for 1992 Olympics, Michael Jordan, he also promoted that Air Jordans in the Europe as well. And that's when people started liking him, and that's when Nike, the first ambassador of Nike, gave him such a high rocket that they became a $1 billion company. In the late 90s, they became a $1 billion company. At that time, you also have to confine the figure that at that time the value for money was less, and in that also they become a $1 billion company with the help of one of the most greatest player of all time. And also you will listen about that why Nike always high, because this happened in 90s. Okay, so in 90s there were also few more athletes who started getting hyped up and wants to go for Nike, because we as a human, we have this tendency to always go towards something which is having a value, which is like main. If you have given a 2 option, for example, let's suppose you have given 3 options, A, B, C, and if A is the option which is known, which is popular, which is best as well, and B is less popular and C is also less popular, we as a human, we will always go for the A option. So this is like a human tendency to always go towards towards something which is known. So in the 90s, some more athletes, Nike started hiring. For example, in golf, they hired the first Tiger Woods. So Tiger Woods used to be known as the best golfer during that time, and he was also in the prime in 90s. He was also in his prime. So Nike hired Tiger Woods. This point where Nike has such a big influence over the world in the sport accessories, where Nike have hired some of the best high profile athletes. For example, in football, if you will see, Ronaldo was their prime brand ambassador. If you will see in tennis, Rafael Nadal was one of the tennis player which was being owned by Nike. Then there is Tiger Woods, then there is LeBron James, who was who are the brand ambassador of Nike, and then they started getting their fame. And also, if you will know about Nike is always known for hiring some high profile athletes. For example, Ronaldo, Nadal, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, all these athletes, high profile athletes, which are known to be the best in their respective careers, in their respective sports, are always being hired by Nike, because there is a reason behind that. The reason is that Nike has created its image in such a way that it will always, because Jordan was the first athlete who was the best athlete in his sport and wear Nike and the Nike's Air Jordan. So that creates a imaginary you can say an imaginary thing in such a way that always the best athletes wear Nike shoes and their accessory. So like in the 90s, it is also, there is also a saying that if Nike would have never got Michael Jordan, Nike would have never got to this stage where they are having such a 50% of the market share. If they never would have signed Michael Jordan, they would have never got to this stage. So Michael Jordan was the most prominent person in the journey of Nike. That's why they are here, that's why they are such a big brand. So there was an image that was being made around Nike, that always the best athletes in their respective sports wear Nike. So due to that, you also see that always athletes also, in some high profile athletes also, wants to go towards Nike, wants to have Nike as their official brand ambassador, because Jordan created that image in 90s. So from there to till now, if you will see in some of the sports, in some of the like biggest sports in the world, whether it's football, tennis, some of the high profile athletes have always opted out Nike. So that is the reason why Nike is such a prominent brand, and Jordan played a very important role in making Nike as one of the most prominent brands across the globe. So I tried to explain it why Nike was being regarded as one of the most prominent brands in the world, and why it is having such a high market share. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this, you can share, subscribe, and leave a lovely comment. Bye.